Most of what you call yourself no longer exists. The conversations, the versions of you that formed under specific pressure, they're gone. And yet something keeps reaching back into that absence and returning with a person, with the same weight, the same reflexes, the same particular flavor of being you. This happens before any decision, before any intention. There's no moment where you choose which memories to consult, which version to resurrect. It's already done by the time you notice it. The person arrived before you had a chance to ask whether you wanted them back. You've probably tried to change something about that. The reactions, the patterns, the particular texture of your own suffering, and maybe something shifted for a while. But at some point, the familiar weight came back, quietly, as if it had simply been waiting. Nisargadatta Maharaj had a word for this: feeding, the continuous, unnoticed act of offering memory to a name and calling the result yourself. What this video stays with is the moment just before that act becomes visible. What exactly is being fed, and what shifts when you finally see it? Nisargadatta didn't speak about this as a psychological problem to be solved. He spoke about it as a case of mistaken identity, one that runs continuously, invisibly, through a mechanism so ordinary it escapes notice entirely. Watch what happens in a gap, a moment of silence between tasks, a pause in conversation, a few seconds of nothing in particular. Within that gap, before any deliberate thought, something moves. A memory surfaces, maybe something from yesterday, maybe something much older, and the mind settles around it. Recognition happens. You know where you are. You know who you are. The gap closes, and the person is back. This is the feeding, the mind reaching into the archive and returning with something it can use to confirm a present identity. You are the one who had that conversation, who carries that history, who responds in that particular way under that particular kind of pressure. The confirmation is quick and feels completely natural, which is exactly why it's so difficult to catch. Nisargadatta said, "You created the person through habit and memory. Now you are a slave to what you created." What makes this precise is the word slave. Slavery implies something has authority over you that you didn't consciously choose. The person has authority over your reactions, your responses, your sense of what's possible. And that authority was built quietly, through repetition, without any single moment where you agreed to it. The feeding accelerates under pressure. A criticism lands, or something unexpected shifts. And within a fraction of a second, the mind has already gone back, pulling precedents, pulling evidence, pulling the record of who this kind of situation usually turns you into. It feels like orientation. It might be the opposite. If the person is assembled from memory, then the desire to change that person is also assembled from memory. You looked at your history, identified a pattern you wanted to alter, projected a different version of yourself forward. The image of who you want to become was constructed from the same archive, just with different selections. The mechanism ran exactly as it always runs. The content changed. The feeding didn't stop. This is the part that's easy to understand and almost impossible to fully absorb. Every effort at transformation that began with, "I want to be different," was already the person speaking, already the accumulated self, using its own tools, working with its own materials, trying to build something that would outlast itself. The architect and the prison have the same address. Nisargadatta watched this happen in the people who came to him, the ones who had spent years watching their minds, sitting in silence, studying non-duality. He said most seekers are building a more sophisticated version of the same structure, with better vocabulary and more refined suffering. The spiritual search becomes another accumulation, another thing the person does with its time, another layer of memory being offered back to the name. If even the search is feeding, what would it mean to stop searching? And is the one asking that question also the person under all of this? There is something Nisargadatta kept returning to, and it doesn't resolve anything, which is part of why it stays with you. Before the name, before the memory, before the particular shape your history gave you, there is something that simply exists, a bare registration of being present, existence prior to any description of what kind of thing is existing. He called this the I am, precise that this was the only real thing. The person is what happens when attention moves away from that bare existence and latches onto content, something to describe, something to remember, something to carry forward as evidence of a continuous self. The feeding begins in that movement, in the fraction of a second between existing and the first thought that turns existence into a story about who is existing. Trying to locate that bare existence, the I am, before any content, the mind immediately turns it into another object to find, another destination, another search with a searcher already assembled at the center of it. The person looking for what precedes the person, the mechanism running inside the attempt to see the mechanism. Staying with this is almost vertiginous. The movement that creates the person happens before awareness can catch it. By the time there's a thought about changing, about investigating, about understanding the mechanism, the person is already assembled. The thought is already happening inside it. The investigation uses the same structure it's trying to examine. The tools and the problem are made of the same material. Can you find the moment before the person assembles? And does the looking for it already require the person to be there, holding the flashlight? Whether seeing this clearly changes anything in the moment, I haven't worked out. The mechanism seems to run regardless. The person assembles, the memory surfaces, though watching it happen feels different, a quality of distance that wasn't there before. Whether that distance matters, I don't know. Nisargadatta didn't offer a method for stopping the feeding. He said the false dissolves when it's seen clearly, and that seeing clearly is what happens when you stop looking for an exit and start looking at the structure itself. The difficulty is that even that can become another project for the person, another thing the accumulated self pursues in the hope of becoming less accumulated. He pointed to this too, without leaving a way around it. What he kept returning to was simpler than any method. Stay with the question of what you are prior to the first memory that was offered up as identity, prior to the name, prior to the version of yourself that learned to recognize itself as you. That staying, without hurrying toward an answer, is where the feeding loses something. He didn't specify what exactly. Maybe that's the point. The person will probably reassemble tomorrow with the same weight, the same recognizable texture, the same responses pulled from the same archive. Nisargadatta didn't promise that stops. What he said was that understanding the mechanism is already a different relationship to it. The feeding continues. Something that can watch the feeding has come into view. Somewhere between the last word of this video and whatever your mind reaches for next, the person will reassemble. You might catch it this time. When did you first notice the same person coming back? And what were you doing when it happened? If you want to keep sitting with these questions, there's more here when you're ready.